Hey, good morning. And today we're going to read our green group leveled reader. This is called Making a Newspaper. And I haven't looked up the quiz numbers yet, by the way, but I will. This is by Samantha Rabe. So here we go. Printing a newspaper was hard work during the 1700s. Printers needed ink, paper, and metal letters called type. They needed a printing press, too. Printing a newspaper took a lot of time. A printer might work 14 hours a day. Now, there's a couple of things I want to point out here. One, if you look at this page, there we go. You see the commas. Remember those commas in a sentence when you're listing more than one thing? See where it says printers need ink, comma, paper, comma, and metal letters called type? Believe it or not, Mrs. Heck went to Buckeye Career Center. It was called Buckeye Joint Vocational School at that time. And guess what she took? Graphic arts. And graphic arts is printing. So I learned how to do all of the things that went with printing. And when I first graduated, well, actually, before I even graduated, I worked for the typesetters and USA Quick Print. And then at one point, I worked for the Times Reporter newspaper. So I know a little bit about this stuff. Newspapers had lots of text. Printers often copied stories from other newspapers. Sometimes printers wrote about their own beliefs. These writings were called essays. And we know, because we've written opinion pieces, what those look like. Mrs. Heck's job at the Times Reporter, I worked in the business office, accounts receivable, accounts payable, but one of my jobs was to measure the type in the newspaper. So I'm going to show you these pictures. There's some labels for you to check out. Okay. Newspapers had very few cartoons. They did not have any photos because there were no cameras. Yikes. Obviously, I wasn't born back then. But newspapers did have ads. Ads made large amounts of money because people paid to have the ads printed. The stories, essays, and ads, there's those commas again, had to be printed on paper. First, printers took metal letters from a box. They put the letters together to form words and lines of type. Printers locked the type into a metal frame. Now, when I went to Buckeye, my junior year, we still did this way of typing, putting the type into the metal box. At that time, though, computers were kind of getting started. If you remember correctly, I'm kind of old. I would have been at Buckeye from 85 to 87. And my junior year, 85, 86, we used this form of letters where we had to put them in the metal thing. But in the corner of our room was a CompuGraphic, which was one of the first typesetting computers. And so I would go over on my free time and play with it. And then my senior year, I had learned enough about it that I instructed or taught the junior class behind me how to use the CompuGraphic. So it was pretty exciting stuff back then. Next, printers spread ink over the type. Then they put paper across it. The printing press pressed the paper against the type. The result was a printed page of newspaper. Workers hung the printed page up to dry. Printers could print as many as 240 pages an hour. After printers finished printing a page, they took the type apart. Each letter went back to its place in the box because they could only do so many pages at a time and they only had so many letters that they could use. I'm interested now how many pages a printing press prints now, because I bet it's a lot different. And I'm curious too if they still use, I know the Times Reporter still uses the big printing presses, but I'm curious about those big city ones. So here's your pictures. Today's newspapers have a lot of text. There are stories, essays, and ads. Today's newspapers have lots of color too. There are color photos, cartoons, and ads. We have a whole section in the newspaper now that are cartoons. They're comics. So there's also I think on one of those pages they have like a word, not maybe not word searches. They're called, yikes, a puzzle, some kind of puzzle, word puzzle maybe. Printers from the 1700s would be amazed by today's tools. These inventions made newspaper printing much quicker and easier. Today, text is typed on computers, just like the CompuGraphic, because changes can be made quickly and easily. And you guys know this. We use Google Docs, and Google Docs is a form of the CompuGraphic. We didn't have as many typesetting, like the fonts as you guys have, the sizes. Everything has just multiplied. When we started, it was very basic, but you guys do this stuff all the time. And some of you who are really creative and already messing with fonts and type size already know what we're talking about. So here's your picks. Today's printing presses print thousands of sheets of paper each hour. Today, many people even use computer technology to print newspapers. These accomplishments are amazing. What will people come up with next? Now, when I was in school, we had a dark room. We actually went out and photographed students actively doing things to put in our yearbook. And then we would take it in the dark room and process the pictures. And then we went through this process called cut up and paste, where we, the CompuGraphic printed out on this paper. It was a shiny, filmy paper. And we had to paste it up on whatever size book or newspaper we were doing, and you would put the photograph after you had developed it in the darkroom on there as well. And then you would do that same process where we made a metal image that was also done in the with the darkroom materials, but we made a metal image that went on a 80 dick printer, and we would print stuff all the time. So I hope you enjoyed making a newspaper. Again, this is the green leveled reader. And so grab your paper and go ahead and get started.